Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. When last we met, the king of Assyria had come against Judah, and Hezekiah had just become king. Hezekiah, turns out, was a good king. He was a good man, and he is a king that's identified here as doing right. And so uncharacteristically for the king of Assyria, Hezekiah was standing against him in a region where the king of Assyria was pretty much just mowing over towns and kingdoms. So we come today into 2 Kings 19 through 22, and the story continues, and we learn more about Hezekiah. Hezekiah sends for the prophet Isaiah because he needs reassurance. Everybody is telling Hezekiah that, it sounds good that you've gone and talked with God, and you've consulted with God, and God said that He's with you and everything's fine. But the king of Assyria is conquering everybody. There's just no way that your God is capable of stopping him. And they lay out over and over again, so-and-so's God didn't protect them, so why would your God be able to protect you against the Assyrians? And Isaiah comes, and it's really fun, the response that he has. He doesn't necessarily respond to Hezekiah. God responds to the king of Assyria through Isaiah, and he says, "Have you not heard? Long ago I did it. From ancient times I planned it, that you should turn fortified cities into heaps. I know you're sitting down, and you're going out, and you're coming in." He announces to the king of Assyria, this prophet is speaking for God, and God is announcing to this king that he designed all of his conquests. It was his purpose to allow him to have all those conquests. But he goes on to say, now you're railing against me. Now you're putting me down. And you're challenging me directly by saying that Hezekiah, who has consulted with me, and I've told him that Hezekiah will be victorious. You're saying that that's not possible, that you're too good for that. So now I'm going to destroy you. And that's what happens. Overnight, while camped outside the city, 185,000 Assyrians die. They just die overnight. And the rest of the Assyrian army goes home. What I marvel at here is the king of Assyria has had this witness. He's had God tell him, and in his worldview, he has had a God tell him that all of his victories were his design. And then he sees 185,000 of his soldiers die overnight, and he has to retreat. But it doesn't seem to affect him. He's not moved. And in fact, he winds up being killed while worshiping his local god. He was in the temple of his local god when he was set upon and killed. So it comes about that Hezekiah is right. God is with him, and he does a lot of good things. He is trying to walk in God's way. And in chapter 20, we see that he becomes ill. And so he doesn't send for Isaiah. God sends Isaiah to Hezekiah to tell him, hey, look, you're not going to make it out of this, and you need to set your house in order. And Isaiah is leaving the compound. He's leaving where Hezekiah lives, his tents, his kingdom. That's something to look into, whether he's actually leaving some big castle at this point. But Isaiah is leaving, And Hezekiah, when told to get his house in order, he doesn't get up and start going around sending for orders, worrying about how his treasures will be divided. He doesn't call up his children or his best friend. He doesn't bring people into the room to direct how his power will live on, or work on erecting a monument. It says he turns his face to the wall and he prays to God, remember me. This is what Hezekiah does when he's told to put his house in order. And I think it's really important here, because instead of looking at a worldly put my house in order, his immediate response was to make sure that he was right in his relationship with his God. And because of that, I would say that is why Isaiah doesn't even make it out of the compound before God is talking to him again and saying to go back and tell Hezekiah that he will heal him. I think we're supposed to see a direct relationship here. Isaiah doesn't get very far down the road, and God changes his mind about what this prophecy is, and instead tells Isaiah to inform Hezekiah that he will heal him, and he is going to add 15 years to his life. Interestingly enough here, Isaiah also returns with the information that is necessary to heal Hezekiah. And he instructs his caretakers to apply a cake of figs on the boil that is causing the infection, that is likely to carry Hezekiah away from his earthly form, but instead Isaiah is given the information and relays it to save Hezekiah's life. This is something that I definitely I have experienced time and time again, this inspiration, this information of how to address a problem. And in this case, God had decided that he was going to save the king of Judah's life. And Isaiah goes on to talk to him about what's going to happen. And Isaiah tells Hezekiah that Babylon is going to take away all of his riches, and that his sons will be carried away and become officials in the palace of the king of Babylon. And poor Hezekiah is such a nice guy. He assumes that this means, because he tried to placate Assyria once before and give riches and become vassals to get peace. He assumes that what Isaiah is telling him is actually a sign of peace. So Hezekiah dies, his son becomes a ruler, he's evil, his grandson becomes a ruler, he is evil, he is also evil, and it isn't until his great-grandson becomes a ruler that we have somebody on the throne in Judah that is good. And the story here is also really, it definitely shows us how good is relative, because Hezekiah was a good man and he is listed as doing right. But when his great-grandson comes to the throne, it says that his high priest comes upon the book of the law. It has been lost. It has been missing, and nobody knows about it. And the high priest reads it, and I think definitely is immediately alarmed because of what it says God expects the chosen people to be doing in order for his protection. He passes this on to Josiah, is the great-grandson's name, passes it on to his scribe, who brings it to the king. The king reads the law and tears his clothes and freaks out, because here he knows everything that his fathers and grandfathers and ancestors have been doing. And even though Hezekiah did right, he still wasn't reading out the law on the regular, which the Israelites were instructed to do. They were instructed to write the law on their hearts, on their heads, on their foreheads. They were instructed to put it on their doorposts. They were supposed to read it out multiple times of the year so that they would remember it and they would do it. And here the book of the law has actually just been lost. It's under piles of platters and serving utensils and things that have junked up the temple, including in the time between Hezekiah and Josiah. Things that have junked up the temple are Asherah poles and altars to other gods. All of this stuff has laid over to the extent that it's all cluttered, and it's so cluttered that the book of the law, that is the most important thing to be remembered and pulled out from the temple, has just become dust. It's just become something that's at the bottom of the pile. And they pull it up and they realize it is too little too late, which we're going to explore as we keep reading into next week. God is pretty angry at this point, but the fact that we're seeing this idea that even those that are doing right are not following God's law, and so they are still separated from him. There's a separation, and God is still trying desperately to have a relationship with his creations, and they are trying desperately to run in the other direction. I loved this moment here with King Hezekiah. It really touched my heart to think that he believed God. He believed Isaiah. He believed what Isaiah affirmed, and to be told that you're not going to make it through this illness, get your house in order. I think about what I would do in that moment, and I applaud this man. I look up to this man in the fact that he just turned to the wall and he reached out to his God. He didn't worry about anything else, and I think that would be really difficult to do. I hope that I would do the same, but he did, and he was rewarded for it. As a healer, as somebody who looks into plants, the fact that part of that was God revealing how he was going to survive and then be given 15 more years is pretty cool as well. I pray that God is blessing you today and drawing you into his word more. There are so many good stories here that I can't fill in. I'm trying to keep these short every day. And trust me, there are so many more stories when I read 3 and 4 chapters. There's so much more here than what I can even cover or touch on. I hope you're being drawn into his word to read and think, well, why didn't she talk about this? Drop me a line. I desperately want to talk about those other stories, but for brevity's sake, I am having to pick, and it is difficult some days. I pray that God is blessing you with that hunger and brings you back on another day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.